Hi, and welcome back to the Johnny Pacheco Latin Music and Jazz Festival at Lehman College. This is our panel discussion on the topic titled The New Jazz Standard, Gender Equality in Jazz. And so I'm going to pass the microphone over to Ms. Victoria Smith and Ms. Danya Miguel, and they're going to take it from here, and I know you're going to really enjoy this workshop.
Thank you, Professor Molnar.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to those who are here physically in the audience, and thank you to everyone who is tuning in right now. I'm Victoria Smith. This is my co-moderator, Danya Miguel.
I'm Danya Miguel.
Hi, okay. So yes, as Professor Molnar said, the name of our panel is called The New Jazz Standard, Gender Equality in Jazz. And we have a fantastic panelist lined up for you today. So we're going to allow them to introduce themselves briefly, and then Danya and I are going to talk about how we decided to do this panel.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Egenam Segbefia. I play the trumpet, and I've been playing for about 20 years, and I'm part of the first graduating class of Celia Cruz Bronx High School of Music.
Hi, everyone. My name is Penny Giacano, and I am the founding band director at the Celia Cruz Bronx High School of Music, and currently in my 20th year teaching.
Hi, my name's Deasia Clark. I'm 17 years old. I play the saxophone, and I play whatever saxophone Giacano tells me to play, and
That's awesome.
and I go to Celia Cruz Bronx High School of Music.
My name is Jacqueline. I play the alto sax, and I go to Celia Cruz.
Hello, my name is Kevin. I play the alto sax, clarinet, and flute, and I also as well go to Celia Cruz.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Cool. We're like doing like a micro. It's on? Okay, we're doing like a microphone shuffle right now. But as you can hear, everyone on this panel is either a student of or a past student or a teacher at the Celia Cruz Bronx High School of Music, which is right next door. So a little bit about ourselves and how we decided to do this panel. So again, my name is Victoria Smith. I've been a percussionist for just over 10 years now. And I've been playing jazz as my main genre for about 8 of those 10 years. And during my time as a musician, I've noticed that there wasn't a lot of female representation in the percussion section. And throughout my travels, to different parts of the world, playing music and having conversations about music, I realized that this was actually a global phenomenon. This isn't something that's, relegated to New York City in any way, shape, or form. So I talked with Danya over the summer, who is an amazing vocalist, but she'll tell you about herself in a minute. And we decided to do this panel to try and get diverse perspectives about gender and jazz and what we can do to make the genre more equitable.
Hi, I'm Danya Miguel. I'm a vocalist here at Lehman College. I've been singing since I was a child. Being taken to church to sing every day was like my thing. And it sort of became the way for me to express myself. There's no words that I can put to a melody. Everything that I feel can come out in song. And it really helps with being an immigrant and not being able to communicate at all times, and language barriers, so I can communicate in song.
Yeah, she does. And if you want to hear her communicate in song, you guys should totally come out to the jazz performance that we have tonight at 7:30 p.m. That was a shameless plug. But moving on to the actual panel discussion. So we're going to pass the mic around, or you guys have the mic right there. Yeah, just pass that around. Introduce yourselves again, but this time talk a little bit about what jazz means to you. Why is jazz so important? So again, your name, and then talk about jazz.
I'm Deasia, and I've been playing jazz for around 4 years now, and it's helped me to connect more with my heritage because generally speaking, in other classes, you don't learn so much about yourself besides history, where it's so negative. It has a negative connotation to it. And I feel like playing jazz has opened my eyes to another world of music.
My name is Jacqueline. I've been playing jazz for 2 years now. 2 years now, I think. And I never really listened to jazz before until I got into the school. And I really like it. like it brings me out of my comfort zone.
Hello, my name is Kevin. I've been playing jazz for 5 years now. And for me, jazz is a way to express myself because, I don't know, I feel like a shy person, and also I feel like jazz is another way to, like, it's a language, so it shows how we can communicate with other people and, like, show differences in heritage and culture, and it's a beautiful thing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eganam. I've been playing jazz for maybe over 10 years now, and jazz to me is freedom because unlike classical music, you have to play everything that's written there. And with jazz, you have the liberty of once you've learned a piece, to then take it and innovate it in your own way. And it's kind of like expressing yourself. You know, you learn how to speak from your parents, and you learn the correct words, you learn the words you're supposed to say, you're not supposed to say. And as you get older and you get more experience in it, then you start to use your own words. You know, you get a thesaurus, and then you learn. So to me, that's what jazz means. It means the freedom to the freedom to add knowledge to myself and then use it to express myself as well. So that's for me.
I'm Penny, and I've been playing jazz on and off since high school, which is too many years to count at this point. And I had a great diverse experience in high school playing because I played electric bass, and I'm actually a woodwind player, so I got to really experience a whole different side being in the rhythm section. And what I love about teaching jazz to these young people is that they really get to, like you said, they really get to express themselves, and it's very different from their classical training where they're going from the eye to the ear. Here in jazz, they get to go from the ear to the eye. So they get to really learn to express themselves and take something and really claim it for themselves and make it their own, and then bring it into something bigger than what it was before. So I love to see them have that freedom to be able to express themselves musically.
We wanted to ask you, the students, how was your application process entering Celia Cruz?
Well, for me, I had to audition, and it was a scary start because I didn't want to come to the school at first. I wanted to go to TU, and then after a while, I started to grow and love Celia Cruz High School.
Well, yeah, I had to audition as well. I didn't know anything, but I got in somehow.
I didn't have to audition because 2 summers before, my music teacher told me about the summer music program at Celia Cruz. So I attended 2 years beforehand, and with that, I was able to get into the school.
For me, it was a little bit different. When I graduated from from CIS 22, my senior year in middle school, I was looking for schools, and I saw a lot of music schools, and then I saw Celia Cruz, and I saw that, it was the first graduating class, was just starting out. So I looked at it, and I took it as an opportunity to really be myself, because, I had 4 years prior to that, I had just moved from Ghana, and I was having problems being able to identify with my peers at the time. So when I realized that this is an opportunity to, start something new, I felt a sense of pride without even being there. And I definitely had to audition as well, which was fun. At the time, I didn't know how to read music, so kudos to this lady here next to me. Because of her, I'm able to do the things I can do today, so thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Penny, correct me if I'm actually, hold on, real quick. Pass this down to Penny so she can respond. If I'm remembering correctly, Celia Cruz is like the only specialized music high school in the Bronx in particular, right? Or am I mistaken?
There are other schools that have music emphasis, but they're part of a larger arts program. We're the only one that's just for music. So everyone in our school either sings or plays an instrument. We have band, orchestra, and choir, and every student participates in those ensembles.
Okay, great. Could you maybe give the audience just a little context about Celia Cruz and like how it is different from, say, a regular high school because of its emphasis on the music curriculum, just for some context?
Okay, so we opened because we wanted our Bronx students to have a school in their borough where they could study music. Previously, before before your class came in, there was no place for students to study music in the Bronx. And they were having to go to Manhattan schools to do that, and we wanted it to have it here for our Bronx students. We didn't think they should have to be taking the train to go. And our founding principal, Dr. Rodriguez, felt very, very strongly about that, and he formed a team and wrote a proposal to open our school. Our students do take everything that they need for their high school degree, obviously, varying degrees of honors and college now and AP and courses that they need. But we have 2 periods of music 5 days a week. So 5 days a week, these students are in ensemble. They have, as they become upperclassmen like these 3, they have jazz twice a week and their wind ensemble 3 days a week in that program. And that's the way it runs for most of our music program.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's actually one of the reasons why we wanted to work with Celia Cruz in particular, because again, this is a Bronx college, and this is a Bronx high school. And I agree with what you said. I think a lot of times people tend to assume that you have to outsource, if you're from the Bronx in order to get access to great opportunities, especially higher education opportunities or specialized, musical opportunities. So the fact that we have a school like Celia Cruz quite literally right next door, like I hear you guys playing recess outside when I'm taking math tests, but it's fine. Like, I remember being that happy once. And, such a true statement. But yeah, so it's really nice to have you guys quite literally within our vicinity, and sometimes, you guys even play with us as well. So segueing into the next question, you actually did this naturally, talking about upperclassmen. So for the upperclassmen, can you guys talk a little bit about, no one likes to answer this question, the what's next question, but we're going to ask it right now. It's, where do you see yourself musically within, say, the next 5 years? And how do you think Celia Cruz is preparing you for this, or how has Celia Cruz prepared you for this next step in your musical journey?
Also, I just want to add, give your honest answer. Not all of our students
Yes.
music majors, so you can talk about what you think your musical life will be, but you give the honest answer about what you're thinking of doing and what you're going to do.
Perfect.
So my plan is to go into college as an environmental studies major, and music in 5 years, I hope that I'm still playing. I would still like to participate in a band, but I don't want to necessarily go on to be a musician. And I think throughout the years, I've just become fonder of music, and I want to keep it a part of my life as much as I possibly can.
My plan is like going to college for psychology, and I also want to be playing in a band still. I don't know, and yeah.
So for me, I want to do business, general business, and then hopefully after I graduate, minor in jazz studies, jazz performance.
We can maybe talk about your experience.
Oh, definitely. So, as I said before, coming into Celia Cruz, I knew how to play the instrument. I just didn't understand the literacy of it. And after learning, and then being involved in the school and being involved with the music programs, it really prepared me, one, to be very disciplined, because you have to practice. And being able to sit down for an extended amount of time with one goal in mind and working towards that goal, that's one thing that Celia Cruz definitely prepared me for, because without that understanding of putting in the work in first, I couldn't reciprocate what I wanted to get out of it. So that really prepared me for it. It's been a long journey, well, long, short journey, because I'm still young. But music has definitely been my safe haven. Whenever I don't feel, like myself, I can always listen to music. It's always been something that will guide me. I can listen to other people's songs and hear their stories to it and relate to it that way. Also, now as a performer, as a musician, my main job is to cater to people's hearts. And the greatest feeling is, when I meet someone new when I go to a performance, and I can kind of almost see like the wall guarded because I don't know them. And once I play, to see that wall just go down, not because of my personality, but because of the understanding of the work that they know that I've put in. Because music is it's a two-way street. You go one way, you have to come back to you. So that's the thing for me, and that's what I really took from Celia Cruz, looking back now in hindsight.
Amazing, that was great. Yeah, beautiful.
We would like to also ask you, how do you describe a typical ensemble rehearsal? How would you say that that process is like?
Which ensemble, the jazz or
The jazz ensemble.
Okay, so for me, we basically, because I do also different ensembles besides Celia Cruz, so I do go to Jazz Lincoln Center, and I do go to another program called the Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance. So we usually get to the location, we warm ourselves up, and then we basically hammer down any music that's being like a challenge to us, and we focus on that one, and then after a while, we go on to easier pieces to like gain back like our confidence and hit the harder ones back. And then after a while, we go home, practice what we need to practice, or any section of the tune that was really killing us in the practice or in the rehearsal. So
we go in, we talk with our peers, we set up our instruments, we catch up, we go over important dates and stuff, and then we warm up, we practice our music, we go over certain parts because, practicing at home is important, but another part of being in an ensemble is being able to play with your ensemble and bring out each other's strengths and work on your weaknesses. So yeah, that's what a typical jazz rehearsal is like.
For me, as a professional, there's a standard where when you walk into rehearsal, you've already practiced, because practice and rehearsal are two totally different things. You practice in the practice room, you prepare. There's a saying, you go into the practice room with your problems and you come out with solutions. So you come out with the solutions and then you take them to the rehearsal. You go into the rehearsal with problems and you come out with solutions again. So with that understanding as a foundation, whenever I go into a rehearsal, I go in prepared with, the music as much as I can, and then we, depending on how much time we have, we'll separate it and put it into segments and also put breaks in, because once we're playing, it's high intensity. And a technique that was passed down to me is the 20 to 5 rule. Go 20 minutes, take a 5-minute break, or depending on how much time you have with the rehearsals. Within those 20 minutes, you're totally locked in, you're here, nothing else matters. Within the 5 minutes, you decompress. You put the horn down, go get some water, think about something else, and then you allow what you've learned for the last 20 minutes to marinate subconsciously in your brain, so that when you come back to it, it's like, you just pick back up and you go to the next thing. So that's what I take from a lot of my professional practices and professional movements.
Thank you so much.
It's actually a perfect segue into the next question that I was thinking about as I heard you guys talking. So I know for me personally, one of the biggest reasons why music is so important in my life is because of what you talked about, this concept of problem solving. I think that music is one of those multifaceted disciplines that can really translate and kind of like bleed over into other aspects of your life. If you can workshop a drum idea for like 2 hours, then you can sit down and learn how to take things apart, put it back together again, and you use that, for writing essays or for solving math problems. Although I can't add, but that's a whole other story, but we try. And I think that problem solving is such a key thing in music. So that's a question that I have for you guys. It's, how does music, influence other aspects of your life, and how does it help you figure out the various problems that we might have at the various stages of our life, be it high school student, high school teacher, professional, etc.?
So I'd say that, originally in middle school, I wasn't so set on figuring out which high schools to go to and like the best high schools. So that's another way that music has helped me, because I went to the summer band music program, and after that, I don't regret coming to Celia Cruz Bronx High School of Music, but it helped me to be able to come to a high school, and as well as to help me learn more about myself as we go through the music process and see what I'm interested in and what I like. And as I go through the years, I realized that I really like music and I want to do music. Another goal of mine is to play in a marching band, because Miss Chicano is like killing. They have like the cute little hats, and she's like, yep, got to bust out my clarinet, you know, the clarinet chops. So yeah, that's a goal of mine. And I think in general, music is just one of those things, because of course academics are important and you do get somewhat graded, but there's some type of freedom with the music education, and I feel like it's a way for you to decompress, you know, even though at times it can be stressful and you're like, I messed up and I could be better, like there's always going to be some type of issue and you could grow as a musician. But I feel like in general it just helps you to express yourself, and at the end of the day you always feel hyped for music. You're not like, yay, math, you're like music. So yeah.
So we talk a lot in band about life skills. So in addition to all the awesome things that music is and music does just on its own, just of the nature of what we do, we learn how to keep a calendar, right? We learn how to, no, really, I mean, they're looking at me. How many gigs did we do in the spring, Kevin, Deasia? How many? They're doing the math. I mean, when March, they're in the big
They
band.
got to look at the calendar.
Yeah, no, well, they have to know. I mean, I'll send them an email with like calendar alert, and they'll have to email me back because it's a big band, so it's one per part. So if the piano player got a gig, we're not going. So we learn how to use a calendar. We learn how to show up on time. We learn how to show up on time with what we need on time. I mean, it seems simple, but really it's not. These are skills that we develop and that we practice and grow into. We learn how to work with the people around us. In this day and age, we learn how to take our headphones out and be with other human beings and create something together. In this age where I feel that we're very digitally separated from one another, it's the one space where you really have to deal with each other, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know, like the joy of making music and the pain of the wrong notes and the peril of your band director saying, do it again, do it again, do it again. I mean, the patience that goes with that, and the willingness to be able to know you messed something up and not make it like the end all be all of your life. Like, yes, you played an F, it was an F sharp, mark it, let's do it again. It's not, I think they really learn not to take it personally when they make a mistake, and that if they make a mistake, they just correct it and move forward. And I think these are really important skills to have as young adults going out into the world.
Absolutely.
And also to add to that, music adds a lot of confidence to who you are as a person, because from what I've learned, music is the one subject where you're using different subjects as well at the same time. You know, when you understand music, you understand physics of an instrument, you know, what it does. You know, for me as a trumpet, I understand the physics of, you know, you have to blow spit into it in order to make a sound come out. At the same time, when I'm reading the music, I'm learning another language, just like English and the words and what they are. I'm learning that, so I'm activating a section in my brain together with that. Also, adding to that, you know, we're dealing with math. And most of the time when we look at music, you know, you're constantly, we say we add from 1 to 4, that's as a joke, but we're constantly dealing with fractions and understanding how those fractions work in relations with each other. And to take it another step, you know, when you're reading music and you read the expressive devices, most of them are not in English. So you're learning or getting an insight to another language as well. So unlike a lot of other subjects like English, you're strictly English, how to write English, how to read, and that's that. You know, history, you get that. But music, you understand that. And also taking another step again, when you get to the instrument, the first thing that I would learn was the history of the instrument, and understanding that the trumpet came from, you know, a horn that was used for war. You know, to understand how it has transcended over time, over 10,000s of years now, you know, it gives you a sense of understanding the legacy in which you hold in your hand with just a plain old object. And that's the thing. And now to bring it back, what music does is, with the confidence, is when you put in the work and then you come into the bandstand, there's a sense of ease that you come into. If you're not prepared, you're gonna feel, and then that hinders you from being able to just be free And that's what jazz does. So with understanding, like she said, when you make a mistake, no one's perfect. And that's why when we do recordings, they have so many different takes and then they pick the best one. So again, music allows you to be free, to understand that you can live life and not have to be put on a pedestal or be like someone else in society. It allows you to be yourself.
I totally agree.
I think it's funny how you're talking about, with music, you can understand physics. I think my physics teacher in the 11th grade would totally disagree with that statement. Like, I've been doing music for decades, still don't understand physics, but I like the sentiment. So,
we wanted to know, within your experiences, Eganom and Penny, do you feel like you have bumped into problems in your career, in your experience while being in ensembles or in the jazz business and in the industry overall?
What type of problems, or just problems in general?
In general, yeah.
Every day we have problems. It's what you decide to do with the problem. They say life comes at you, it's 1%, and 99% is what you do with it. So when it comes to music, there are times where, let's say someone's not prepared. You have to be patient with that person, because if you have to work with that person, that's the thing. And, the patience in that is very, very, very crucial, because when you deal with problems, you deal with attitudes, I'm not saying attitude in a negative way, because everyone has a different attitude about how they approach life. And the beauty with music is that we can bring people who don't even speak the same language as we do, but if they understand how to read music, or if they understand how to listen to music and play music, we can coexist together. So when we come in with the problems, there's always a way to solve it. And there's always a way to look at it. It just requires you to be patient, look at it from a third person's view or from another person's perspective. So that's how I look at it when I come across problems in music.
Yeah, I think the same way, like, if there's a problem, there's a solution.
Yes.
And as musicians by nature, we're problem solvers. You have to solve the problem in front of you and solve it quickly. And especially in dealing with adolescents, you have to just carry your patience with you and, look at the problem from as many angles as you can and take a few breaths and solve it as best you can. So.
Oh, one other thing to add. When like she says, when you're dealing with adolescents, you see yourself in them, which forces you then to be extra patient.
yeah, no, that's so true. I remember, towards the beginning part of college, I was working at a community center. I was teaching a music program, and I'm dealing with 10 and 11-year-olds, and I was just like, stop hitting the instrument, stop doing this, stop doing that. And I was like, oh my God, I owe my music ensemble teacher an apology. I was that kid that was always hitting the drums when I wasn't supposed to. So so kind of moving this sort of into the direction more explicitly talking about problems pertaining to gender. One of the reasons why we wanted to get panelists of a diverse sort of age and background is so that we can examine this conversation about gender in jazz from a very nuanced perspective. So the first question that I would offer to you guys, specifically pertaining to gender in music, is do you guys feel like there are certain instruments that are usually associated with men and women? And do you think that this is a stereotype that's kind of outdated? Yeah, my parents might have thought that only, X, Y, and Z can play drums or trumpet, but we don't really see that anymore today. Or, do you guys still see that? So I guess to sum it up, do you think that there is equal representation of men and women amongst different instruments in jazz? If yes, great. If no, how can we solve that?
Well, for me, I usually thought the saxophone or any instrument in a jazz setting was mostly played by men because it's usually male dominated. And then I think it was maybe a week or two, I saw this amazing trumpet player in one of the Alja's performance, and she was playing the trumpet, and I was amazed. And it's starting to shift into an era where female are now more accepted into any instrument that they choose to play.
I think they're equally represented, I believe.
I think in general it's not so much of being equally represented. I think it's just them wanting to go out. So like normally females, if you were to ask them, they probably would say like, if they're like learning an instrument and you're like pick an instrument, they'd probably choose like the clarinet or the flute, something smaller. And I think as times have changed, like I play the bari sax, like come on now. And yeah, females have been, you know, looking at other instruments. We have like a girl who plays the trumpet, Naomi, really good. And I think in general we're starting to get closer, but we're still not quite there yet. And it's just something that we can work on over time and hopefully.
I think this is a really interesting question because I grew up in rural Southern California, like on a ranch. And so where I grew up, like the boys did not play the flute. Like it was, occasionally a boy would play the clarinet, but it was definitely like there were very few like female percussionists. Trumpet was always kind of mixed and saxes kind of mixed, but definitely there was definitely the line for flute in particular. And here in New York City, and in particular the Bronx, as far as the instruments they choose, I have pretty equal numbers as far as how they come in. And this starts in the middle school, so they don't generally pick their instrument at the level with me. By the time they get to me, they've already chosen an instrument. But I always found it fascinating in my first few years teaching how the culture is different. And there's a cultural difference for flute playing. Like they have the great example of Dave Valentine, right? Yes. So that makes the flute look just beautiful and masculine. And so there's definitely not that line here. And there hasn't been that line ever since I've been teaching in the Bronx, which is my whole 20 years. So I definitely think that there are less women playing percussion still. In my program, I see less girls on percussion. I see less girls on trombone. We're always looking for the girls to play trombone. And we have 2 this year. We're like, yeah, right? And still less on the trumpet, surprisingly, which surprises me a little bit. But saxophone, I mean, there have been years when we could take over the section. We have a lot of girls who play saxophone now. And bass, I think he's got a pretty equal distribution between men and women on the bass players in the program as well. And still boys on guitar mostly. It's very rare that I have a girl playing guitar, so in the jazz scene.
Yeah. For me, it changed over time. When I first came to this country and I was in middle school, we were in a marching band, so you would always have to carry your instruments. So because, you know, a lot of the ladies at the time, they were like, what, 10 to 13 years old? Nobody wants to carry a big old trombone that's bigger than them. So they said, you know what, I could put my flute in my bag, and I played it. So they looked at it from that aspect. It was always a choice for what instrument the kids wanted to play, because we were lucky enough to have our teachers be able to say, hey, you pick an instrument that you want, because if you don't allow the kid to pick the instrument, the kid's not going to be interested in it. You know, so because you have to put a lot of work in. So now in the workforce, you know, I see a lot of female trumpet players, and it's amazing. I was like, you know, I find myself watching female trumpet players become like, she is really awesome. Like, she really knows what she's doing. Not in amazement, but just in understanding how far we've come with equality. Because just 60, 70 years ago, no, actually, what, like 80 years ago, the women's suffrage movement, you know, after the war, the World War, where women took over, and you started to see the change in the perspective of things. If you look at jazz and you look at the swing era, the women were singers. You know, they weren't instrumentalists. Majority of them were singers. And as you started to see it going into avant-garde, and then you see it coming into the 80s and the 90s, there were a lot more representation of women in there. So for me, I never really had, you know, a thing where I looked and I was like, there are no women here. Yeah, but also I was more so like, I needed to focus to get my part right. Then worry, okay, if there are women here, you know, not that they shouldn't be, they should be. Everybody should have the opportunity. It's just that's what my mind was at the time.
I feel like Penny and I just did a mutual glance, so maybe we can like elaborate on that, because I think that's so fascinating how you're talking about how, I guess we can kind of also open it up as a question, but I know definitely growing up, sometimes one of the first things I would do, especially as an adolescent, you know, being 15, 16 years old, you know, you're body conscious, et cetera, and I would kind of like walk around and notice like, wow, everyone here is a guy who plays lacrosse, like, you know, the percussion section, for instance, or like, oh, wow, I see like one other girl in the back, you know? Like, so I know for me, I was very conscious of gender in music growing up. And Penny, is that something that you can kind of relate to?
Well,
or?
I was kind of laughing about that when you're looking around, because we go to several jazz festivals and we'll sit there and we'll like it's noticeable when there are no girls or when there are a lot of girls. You know, like we always, when we're watching the ensemble, we're like, oh, like there was one girl with the ones in the blue dress at the Berkeley Festival, the trombone player we wanted to kidnap, right? So like, but we all like it's noticeable. And for me as a female high school director, I'd find myself vastly outnumbered. I mean, there are women doing this gig and doing it fantastic, but there's always, when we go to a director's meeting, there'll be like 3 women and 15 men. Always. So we're always kind of outnumbered in that way. So when he was talking about looking around and seeing, that's where I got that.
And, you know, just sort of feeding off of that, like, why do you, just like thought experiment, we don't have to like come up with an actual answer right now, but like, why do you think that is?
I definitely, so as far as the women teaching, and now we're talking about high school, so I think that the commitment outside of the home as a high school band director is time consuming and intense. And if you have your own children, it's very, very difficult to balance the demands of home and work. So a lot of women, I think, do the elementary and the middle school job, not only because they love to teach elementary and middle school, and they're great teachers. I mean, without them, we wouldn't have high school programs, but your day ends sooner. There's not as many extracurricular constraints with that. So, I mean, I'm very lucky to have an amazing husband who helps me navigate and manage my time between school and work. But I'm with these guys almost as much as my own children sometimes. So I think in those kind of the stereotypical, the women at home and the men at work still kind of lives in that vein a little bit, in that it's more typical for a male to be committed to work outside of the home, extracurricular, extra hours, than it is for women. And so, and a little bit, maybe even a little bit easier, maybe not for some. So I think that's a lot that has to do with it at the high school level, I think.
Definitely, I totally agree with her on a high school level. For the professional level, it's a little bit mixed now, because I see people who are thriving in it. And right now, it's not, hey, we're gonna pick the guy because he's a guy. We're gonna pick whoever's gonna play the right notes and be able to express themselves the way they need to. And like she said, you know, goes back down in history. We come, you know, over a century ago, it was women in the house, men out. And now it's more, you're getting the tail end of having people equally represented in the professional space and also in the home space. Because now you have guys who are stay-at-home dads, and that's totally fine. You know, if you want to live and you want to be comfortable living in America, we have that luxury. So that's what I get from it.
Yes, I do have a question. Within your rehearsals, within your experience playing music, have you ever experienced some sort of comment or something that made you uncomfortable from a comment from someone else in regards to maybe your gender or your ethnicity? What is your experience within that field?
I'd say the problem is more of the lack thereof the commentary, because sometimes it could be constructive criticism or, you know, it could be compliments. And generally speaking, the attention is drawn more towards the males in the jazz field. And even when there are females, you know, playing jazz and like doing like what they love and doing an amazing job, they just don't get the recognition that they necessarily deserve. Or if there's somebody else, you know, sometimes if it's like a male student, you know, if there's like a male-dominated like audience or such and forth, like I've experienced this sometimes with pairs, you know, like they like cheer on, you know, like the clapping, like sometimes even if people say that, it doesn't matter, but like you're like soloist, this person, and it's like a guy who stands up and the crowd goes wild, and then it's like soloist and a female stands up, and it's just like, so, yeah.
I haven't really experienced any like negative comments in the jazz, playing jazz. And
That's amazing. Like,
I just want to say that if I caught them doing that, if I caught anyone doing that in my rehearsal, you can see them shaking their head like, we don't.
For me, it's more so again in the professional sense. They're worried about you getting not worried. They're making sure you're on point. You know, playing. I played at My Fair Lady, and it was a very like 50-50 representation of females to males in the orchestra pit. And one thing that I've noticed, and I really really love about women being there, is that whenever we had intermission, the women made sure we had food. Guys, not so, we'll have our gum or whatever is there, but the women always make sure we had sweets, make sure we had water, and I think it just comes with the nurture of a woman. So that's one thing that I really, really appreciated, because if it was just all men, I mean, I don't know, because I've never been in an all-male pit, but I'm pretty sure it'd probably be a little bit different, where a guy would really have to, kind of step out to express that emotion, like, hey, I got some food for you guys. I'm caring about you. But it's just it's a motherly woman, sister, daughter kind of vibe that they just want to take care of it, and that's beautiful.
Cool. This is a question really directed towards some of the students that play in ensembles outside of Celia Cruz. I'm looking at one, I'm looking at two, I believe, possibly all three. So what have your experiences been like? Because again, honestly, I mean, I love the music program that I had, growing up, no shade to it whatsoever, but this sounds like an absolutely amazing, almost idyllic ensemble. And I've seen you guys rehearse before, and I'm like, what is this utopia of beautiful sound and gender equality and shades, and oh my gosh, it's amazing. And I want to know, is that something that you experience when you play in other ensembles? And if the answer is yes, amazing, let's talk about that. Why do you think that is the way it is? And if not, let's talk about that as well.
Well, as I said before, I do play with the Jazz at Lincoln Center youth big band, and directed by Ted Nash, killing saxophone player.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
He's so much cooler. Like, what?
So, we do have some females, actually, females playing guitar, females playing saxophone, trombone. It is a mixture. It's showing, how they said in history, how before we would just look at just female musicians who were singers, like Ella Fitzgerald, and now we're looking up to females that are now coming up in artists like Alexa Tarantino, who's a killing saxophone player as well, and doubler, and it's amazing to see this progress happening now in our...
He's the only one who really plays that.
Oh, my bad. Okay, thought it was a few more. I'm so sorry. Next question about. Okay, no, it's cool. I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this question. I guess is, I'm also just being mindful of time. Okay, we'll start wrapping it up. I guess these will be the last two questions. So the second to last question that I can ask is, when you guys think about music, and when you guys think about the experiences that you've had as musicians thus far, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it. No, literally, I'm just I'm going back and forth between two. Perfect, I got it. Okay. So if you can think back to a moment as a musician thus far when you had a teacher or a parent or just someone impactful in your life say something to you about music that was really encouraging, can you maybe think of that moment, and can you think about why that was so impactful for you to hear, and kind of then also fast forward a little bit into the future? Let's say you guys decide to teach music or to mentor a student in some way. How can we make sure that we are being as encouraging to the next generation of musicians as possible? So kind of a two-part question. Think about a time where someone mentored you or encouraged you some way in music, and then how can you pay that forward in the future? Does that kind of make sense? Yes, no, maybe? Cool.
So I feel like for me, I have thought multiple times, wow, I really don't want to do this. This is too difficult. There comes a point in time where you feel like the music is challenging for you, or you feel like you really cannot do this. But I feel like the mentality of keeping pushing and having idols and people to support you, family or friends supporting you, saying, wow, you did amazing, wow, you can improve on this, but you're going in the right direction, and I feel like that would be helpful to anyone teaching or anyone who is planning on teaching to keep on motivating. Because if it weren't for like Penny, if it weren't for like my friends and family supporting me all throughout my music, I don't think I would be doing what I would do now. So
I'd say that one of my biggest mentors is Penny. She didn't pay me to say this. She didn't pay me to say this. But no, seriously. Throughout my years in high school, she's been like one of the biggest hype women, and you know, she's encouraged me to join the girls' jazz band. And I came in like when I was a 7th grader, and I was very timid, and then I couldn't even like play like this short solo. I was like so scared. I was like shaking like crazy. And as the years gone on, you know, you start to get used to it, become more accustomed, but also it helped for her to, you know, be like, yeah, good solo, or like, come on, don't be a chicken. and yeah, so with that, I've just grown over the years, and she's been really supportive and helpful.
Yeah, for me, that moment where I really got the sense of support was in the 5th grade when I first picked up the instrument. At the time, my English accent was very strong. I came from Ghana, and my 5th grade teacher, JV, was his nickname, Jose Velasquez, he just said, look, if you need to sit here all day and play, that's fine. I'll talk to your teachers for you. And for me, that was everything, because you know, I didn't want to be with my peers at the time, because I was the butt of all the jokes. I was the one kid that was different, and he fostered that. And throughout my years, I've been very, 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 very blessed to be around people who have always pushed me to be a better version of myself. You know, as I came here and I said earlier, I didn't know how to read music, and I was fine with just trying to learn everything by ear. But she sat me down and said, look, I'm not gonna have you graduate out of school if you don't know how to read music. And I was pretty rebellious, and I didn't want to do it. And, you know, at the time I thought that my playing would just get me through. But, you know, with her sitting me down and her being patient and her telling me, look, you got this. You know, you're smart. Just think about it. Take your time, go through it. And that was, you know, it's golden, because not many people, you know, are able to realize their potential because of the lack of support. And because of her doing that for me, I try to make sure all the time, you know, I come to the summer band and just volunteer my time, or I pop in during the school year. Sometimes I don't even tell, I just walk in the door. Hey, some of your trumpet players, I'll take them to the practice room and then we'll work on something, because my schedule gets a little, you know, crazy sometimes. So that's one thing that, you know, I try my best to always pay it forward, because again, I would not be sitting here if someone didn't see the potential in me, if someone wasn't patient with me, if someone didn't really say, hey, I know you can do it, and just be yourself, relax. And that, you know, I had that, so I'm blessed and lucky to have that.
Yeah, I'm feeling the love, guys. I'm gonna be honest, I'm feeling the love.
So beautiful.
So for me, I have a pretty distinct moment, and actually mine is way, way later. It was in my master's degree. And I had a really great mentor, Dr. Keith Kaiser, who's at Ithaca College. And he was actually my high school band director for a couple of years in California. And then when I went to Ithaca for my master's, he was there. It was crazy. And I was working on my portfolio, and there was one thing that we discussed in class, and it was, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not learning anything. And so for me, especially in the jazz field, I mean, jazz came second to me. I was classically trained. I played the oboe. And then I played the saxophone, and I'm still just very young in the language of jazz, I feel, for the depth of knowledge that is around me. I mean, I always feel uncomfortable. I'm always uncomfortable. We sit together, we listen to all the recordings, we discuss how we think things should be played. I mean, so I love being able to feel that discomfort and grow as an educator and grow with my students in that fashion. And then I mean, for these guys, they'll tell you, at least she says I'm the hype woman. I push. I push. The boys, the girls are they're in the band room, they got an instrument in hand, I'm gonna push them because they are capable. And they are capable, every single one of them is capable, and so I will push them as far until they graduate. I mean, it's every day. It's every day I will push them to be their best and to do their best and to know that they are capable of doing more than they think they can do and do it really well. So that's where we're at.
Thank you so much for being an amazing human being.
Yeah, facts.
And an
Like, honestly.
educator. Thank you so much.
And also, thank you for wrapping that up. I was like, how are we gonna close this? Like, what are we gonna do? I'm like, they friggin' closed it. Like, you don't need us. Like,
yeah,
we
that
can
was
literally
perfect.
leave now. But what time is it? Just gonna be mindful of time. Perfect. Yeah. That was literally probably the best possible closer that I can think of. So. I think to sum up what was just said, I think that having, a space for people to play music and to be creative and to really learn the vocabulary of jazz and then, take it to whatever dimension we want to take it to, whether it be, whether you become an educator in environmental science or, I'm sorry, my memory's horrible, I don't remember the other majors, but the point is, even if you don't, business, awesome. See, numbers, that's why I didn't remember it. But whatever direction I think the students wind up going, I think that's something, Danya and I can really agree on. Music is that amazing art form that can be used to transform lives, and it sounds like you guys are on that track right now, and the future of music is in good hands.
Yes,
So thank you
indeed.
guys.
Thank you so much for coming.
And thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. I really appreciate this. Thank you so much.
I would like to thank the entire panel, of course, for participating in this event this afternoon. But in particular, Victoria and Danya worked really hard to put this together and, of course, did a great job. And so I have, just as a small token of appreciation, just a certificate of participation in this year's Pacheco Festival. So
Thank you. Okay.
And and this evening, of course, you're going to get to hear three members of our panel, Danya, Victoria, and Eganam, perform at the grand finale performance for the Pacheco Festival. So I'm really excited about the Lehman Jazz Ensemble performing this evening. Ms. Giacono and the students from the Celia Cruz Bronx High School of Music Jazz Ensemble performed earlier this year, and as always, they did an amazing job. And so, the festival has been an incredible success. And it's hard to believe it's almost over. And it goes by very quickly. But then there will be International Jazz Day at the end of April, and then the 2020 festival, which is going to be exciting for us. So at any rate, we're going to close off the web stream, of course, with an acknowledgement and thank you to the Louis Armstrong Educational Foundation for providing us with funding that really helped us to up the ante on the festival this year. And so we're very grateful for that. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye for now. And please tune in if you're in the Bronx. Tune into BronxNet Television this evening at 7:30. And if you're watching on the web stream, please tune in 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, wherever you happen to be in the world. And if you are in the Bronx, close by to Lehman College, we are in the Lovinger Theater. We'd love to have you come and be here in person. So with that, say goodbye for now. See you a little later.